What you'll see is basically kind of preliminary study for my dissertation thesis. My thesis is focused on the regeneration of inner city railway areas, which is a process that goes on in the Western European cities since the beginning of the 90s. What we have in Prague are more railway brownfields. So disused or underused areas which were dedicated mostly to railway functions. And let's say that since 2000, last 13 years about, there has been like huge planning and discussions going on in terms of what to do with this sort of areas. And I was thinking about this paper. I had this railway in focus, which is actually in European cities, as I mentioned, recognized as a vehicle of urban change in the neglected areas. But the railway was also the power behind the change of the cities in 19th century. So what I did was tracking this dynamic relationship between the railway and the change in the city it can cause, and track it back since the 19th century up to today on one location, one of these railway brownfields we have in Prague, and that's the Smíchov railway area. It's the area which was one of the first industrial districts of Prague. It's quite close from here and also very close to the very city center of Prague. As you see, I picked like two locations which could be good to demonstrate this transformation which took place in the last 150 years. One of them is the railway station as such, as the Smíchov station, and the other is the crossroad, very important historically crossroad of Anděl, or the angel. I went through the history in those three periods. First one was Industrial Revolution, when the railway really actively entered the city, and according to its technical parameters, it actually transformed the city in its physical substance as well as socially. So the city started to grow rapidly, and the intensification of processes and activities was enormous. Smíchov at the time, 1830s, was called a factory village. It was a cluster of scattered houses in which ruins, small, very simple textile manufacturers were moving from the compact city of Prague, which was still behind the fortification gates and which had really not good spatial conditions for such development. The change came in 1840s when a new type of company came into the area. It was actually just the area of Anděl, which I was mentioning before, I will focus on. It was the Ringhofer factory. It brought not only the change of scale, it also brought a really new modes of production. There was finally specialized mechanical engineering company which focused on some special products, later specialized in locomotive and railway carriages production. What was a bit strange, they were focused on carriages, but there was no railway in the vicinity. It was about to change few years later, when the railway from Prague to Plzeň had its station in Smíchov. A few years later, there were two other railway companies which were specialized in raw materials delivery for the industry in Smíchov, and those two railway companies also found its place in Smíchov. Some 10-15 years later, the Smíchov really started booming. There was this potential of railway for the industrial development was recognized. There was a huge intensity in delivery of goods, of products, of raw materials, but also of people, of course. And the development that took place in 80s and 90s was really not merely industrial. It was this typical development, this boom of 19th century, where the metropolis was like bustling with this new life of the new age. So when we see what happened in these two locations during the Industrial Revolution, there was a really strong industry in Anděl with really bustling urban life, and there was a railway station which was feeding this industry with supplies, and it was also generating urban life in a way. In the next period, there was a long time of adaptation to new challenging conditions, which were generated by these constantly growing metropolis. The main issue was transportation. There was a new, really large array of new transportation modes, which suddenly started to intervene and form the face of the city and of Smíchov especially. There was a huge increase in automobile traffic. There was a search for a new system of communications, and there were also plans for reduction of railway since it lost its exclusivity in the city transportation. This might be a bit off topic, but it's actually quite important for the whole development of Smíchov. What we see, there are plans of how to arrange the main transportation system for automobiles in Prague. In 1931 shows like two circles. The inner one, which goes really tight through the historical city, and the outer one like that. And what creates in Smíchov, or what it would create if it was realized, was really tight network of main roads. So this was already something, and this scheme was actually transformed over decades into something which was very similar. There were this inner ring, which we see there, was extended, but it still cut the Smíchov right through the center, creating this huge infrastructural bombs, actually, or how to say it. So what happened was that over a long period of 20th century, the Smíchov was actually constantly threatened by these massive demolitions and increase of traffic. There were actually huge protests in Smíchov against this concept, and it was already at the end of 80s. So the concept was partly revised. This is just to show what finally happened with this highway system, that it was actually in this open highway style. It was realized just along the railway, and then it went to the tunnel to avoid the densely built area in Smíchov. But back to the history, when we get to the Anděl crossroad, there was also another infrastructural change suddenly. It was like bustling city center, but in 80s there was a metro line built right underneath the Anděl crossroad. So one block was demolished, and there was a new metro stop, or how to call this. Okay, you see it. In the vicinity, the Ringhofer plant, also at Anděl, was nationalized after the Second World War. It was a very successful enterprise, yet it was gradually deteriorating. There were actually no refurbishments, no investments done in like 50 years. And that's also, On the railway station, there were some ideas about reduction of the railway, as I mentioned before. And the ideas touched this area on the left picture is the north, the very north of the station, where the coal was distributed from. So when this area closed down, there were some plans of how to actually reuse it for another industrial thing. It wasn't some sort of urban regeneration plans. It was really like how to bring new type of industry. Yet it wasn't realized either. There was also a new building of the railway station built in 1950s. So when we conclude again what happened in the 20th century, Anděl had a slowly dilapidating industry, but also really the quarter as such was declining overally, since it was still threatened by these demolitions, by these interventions, by new infrastructure bringing more traffic. The railway station was also losing its exclusivity, and it stopped generating the life. It suddenly wasn't strong enough. So when we come to the post-communist times, we see at Anděl something really strange happening. Because what seemed to be some kind of killing strategy for Anděl, all this infrastructure pushing all the life away, was suddenly really good precondition for another development. So what happened was there was this critically dilapidated Ringhofer factory, now Tatra Smíchov, which was large plot, single owner. It was almost immediately available for large development. There was metro. There was this tunnel of this inner ring road being under construction. The neglected housing pool entered a regeneration program. And there was minimal planning in the beginning of 90s. So the Smíchov area had finally really good conditions for development. It also became the focal point of developers and of international investors, actually right in 1989. In terms of railway stations, generally in Prague they had to go through revision of the railway strategy. So it already created some kind of constraint of immediate development that could have taken place in Anděl but could not have taken place in Smíchov railway station. So there are some issues that are actually still up to date after these 25 years. It's a high-speed corridor. It's how to include the railway into the regional transportation system. How to make the high-capacity connection to the Prague main station. And there is also requirement to consider the multimodal city logistics storage. There has been several master plans and some joint enterprise of landowner and developer. I would get to the beginning of the 90s. As I mentioned, the first investors, they came with the idea to develop the area. They engaged French architect Jean Nouvel, who developed this strategic plan. He actually identified 10 points of development. So 10 points which would started the development and it would kind of spread to the idea. It was very smart, but not very well accepted actually. Both the railway station and the Anděl area are actually detected as these points, these focal points, Anděl and the station.
Do you know what was the reason why it wasn't accepted?
We can get to it later. It's not there, but maybe I finish first. Okay, this is what started to happen on Anděl. It was the beginning of 90s. By 1996, first buildings were built. This is actually the Ringhofer facility. It's in the north. It goes down soon, and this is the south part. It's already turned down. This is what happens. This kind of traditional block structure, which Anděl is now kind of success story. It's a bustling districts of business, commerce, entertainment. There is this iconic building which you don't see very well by Jean Nouvel. But this success is actually very spatially limited. It's one crossroad and few streets around. But what's around is an area of dilapidating spots, like what you see is the Smíchov station, the northern part I showed before, of the Plzeňská streets. They are both 5-10 minutes walking distance from the very, very spot of activity. I might get to some of the challenges the railway is facing. This is, for example, quite interesting strategy how to include railway into the regional transportation. Because nowadays what you can see is the analysis of current use of various modes of transportation. This is the Smíchov station, the green point, for regional traffic. And for example, this red spot is the tramway on Anděl. So just compare the capacities. I think it's quite clear. What could help is the this sort of railway city tunnel. It's a high-capacity connection that could connect Smíchov with the main station. It's more like utopian now, because of course it's costly and stuff like that. But it's one of the solutions proposed. When we get to the planning, which took place after 2000, this is one of the plans, and I show one more, but just to show that it's almost similar, like continuing on some kind of block structure on the north part with some kind of public space, building up the area along the railway tracks close to the river, but not really north. Oh no, it's not north. Okay, here there is the highway road, and some kind of transformation of the railway station to still keep the traffic. This is the latest design, and to say that this process of negotiation was stopped recently. There was no approval of the municipality given, so okay, no-go situation for now. Just to conclude. I outlined some scenarios of possible development. There is one possibility that the railway station actually becomes a catalyst of urban development, but that would really require learning carefully from European examples of how other cities had developed these areas, because it has some tradition already, like 25 years. There would have to be some kind of planning scheme adopted which would enable coordination and integration of the various actors to make sure that it's actually working. Okay, I just skipped. There's a second scenario that the area will continue to dilapidate, that the integration of the railway strategy in the overall planning will not be accepted due to enormous complexity of the process, due to various actors' interests, underfinanced public services such as railway, or inconsistency in planning, which I mean is like quite big problem. But the planning system still could be strong enough not to allow uncoordinated development. Or the system won't be strong enough, so the development will actually happen, but in a way that just some people could desire. Thank you for your attention.
I'm really interested in this. I mean, it's an interesting part. It's actually one of the first parts that struck me when I looked on Google Earth. So Prague, this area of railways. So is this still a functioning railway station, and is it for freight, or what is it used for? Connecting Prague with what part?
Yeah, it's connecting with Plzeň. Mostly with Plzeň, and also some. It's like okay, there are actually three railway lines going from there to different parts, but the main one is to Plzeň, and it also connects Smíchovské nádraží with the main station. Yeah. But the connection is very weak, so that's why the tunnel I was showing before. Mm-hmm. It's actually about including the railway as such into the development. It's not like getting rid of the rail. It's like taking its potential, because it all like can be the catalyst. It's bringing the people. It still has the same function like in the 19th century. It's still the gate. It's not that exclusive anymore. It's transformed, of course, but it still has the potentials. And this is actually, I was surprised also that this is like really usual solution for European cities. They usually either have or conceive some kind of railway city tunnel which would connect the stations. Because there was historically this situation that every railway line coming to the city just ended somewhere. And then at a certain point the city was already quite big, but the stations were not connected. So at least here we have some connection, so we didn't have to solve it so urgently. But now it's coming actually. That the capacity is missing.
High-speed train maybe somehow Maybe.
But this one is actually this one is conceived for the regional because you would have all these stops on the way, so we could connect it with the
I
metro.
think to Pilsen, there are some ideas. With
Yeah,
this tunnel.
this is the height. Yeah.
And
But it's also the tunnel version as well.
Okay, last question. I would have one. Are there any abandoned railway stations within the Prague that are completely abandoned and something like new wilderness or urban nature placed there?
Mm-hmm.
Or something, you know, for really bad example, something like High Line.
That's I'm thinking. I don't know if it's right what you think, but like Bubny is quite like wild landscape. You know, the trains are still going through. There is a stop from one particular train which goes once per hour, once per half an hour. So okay, the trains are still going there. It's not like fully abandoned, but the area is huge, and I don't know. I met some animals there sometimes. It's really not like and it's the Bubny. Bubny.
for me,
Bubny.
because even for bikes, not even for
Okay.
Not many maps. So. And Žižkov also, yeah. That's true. Vršovice also, maybe. Think of it. Yeah, but it was conceived as this seřaďovací nádraží. They don't really seřazujou. Yeah, you know what I mean. Okay.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
Kateřina.